Good afternoon. It's Sunday. It's time for another update. Another one of my weekly rantings. I didn't get a lot done this weekend. Nice weather meant I had to cut the grass, and that takes up a lot of the time. And B, spent Saturday at an IPMS show. An IPMS show is an interesting thing to do. It's something you should maybe do once in your life, maybe twice if you have to. It's about as different for me as the Mad Monster Party was on the last road trip that I went on. IPMS, apparently the local organization, the last leadership didn't believe in having contests, and they recently got some new leadership who wanted to reinstitute the contest, and that was good. I always believe that, you know, nothing brings modelers together more than when they can stand around and talk about what they've done and show it to the general public, and I just think any exposure is good. But and it's nice in this first contest that they had tried to make inclusions for the sci-fi builder, the figure modeler. I don't know how successful it was, though. They would have categories like single prop engine, 1/72nd scale or smaller axis, flown by guys who were left-handed named Jim. That would be a category. But then they would have a whole category for all of sci-fi, all scales, all models, whatever. And I just don't feel like they were I mean, it was nice for them to try to include sci-fi, but I don't think their heart was in it. That's just my personal opinion. I'm not going to grouse about who won, who didn't win, because that never sounds like anything but sour grapes. I just felt like I was perhaps bringing a T-bone steak to a vegan cookout, and no matter how good the steak would have tasted, there's no way the judges were going to do anything more than sniff it and move on to the next thing. I had gone with my local modeling group, and there were some seriously talented builders and painters in that group. And outside of Dave's Frankenstein bust, that nobody could deny was an excellent piece of painting and modeling. I don't think we were well represented. I don't think our skills were recognized. But like I said, it doesn't. There's no way to not make that sound like sour grapes. So enough of that. The only lesson I'll tell you is I learned a valuable one, and that is that you cannot spell IPMS without PMS. But that's that's on the one hand. On the other hand, if you're going to an IPMS show and you're a sci-fi modeler, it's good. It's a good deal for the dealer's table, because the dealers that were there, and they had cars and trucks and planes and boats and tanks and helicopters stacked from the tables to the ceiling, and a lot of people are out there buying them. But the one or two folks that were there that were selling sci-fi kits, nobody was paying attention to them. Not nearly as much as the handful of us that build sci-fi. And I gotta tell you, there were deals to be had. Let me show you. Like, the last thing I needed was to buy more model kits. I've got model kits out the wazoo, which makes it tough to sit. So I didn't need to buy any more, but simply there were some things I could not pass up. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Okay, I'm out here on the yards strictly so you could see, hey, I got the grass cut. So I can show that off. But this whole stack of models, and I'm telling you, there's a stack in there. This whole stack of models ran me approximately $35. $35 for what is easily maybe $250, $300 worth of models, maybe, if you can find them anymore. The one on the bottom here, this Pro Shop X-Wing, that was listed for $25. The guy had it on his table for $25. And then, about an hour or two, maybe an hour and a half before closing, he just announced that everything on his table was going to be half off. So this Pro Shop X-Wing cost me $12.50. I looked it up last night on Amazon. It's about $90. $90 for that. Some really great kits like this Dick Tracy. Would never have thinking of buying it myself, but for $5 I couldn't turn it down. And that was $5. I think it was $5 before it was half price. Now you'll see a lot of these have the wrappers taken off of them, and you always have to worry about when you're at a show and you're buying a loose box like that, are all the parts there? Yeah, all the parts are there. The ones that you don't see wrappers on, I took the wrappers off of to kind of get in there and feel the parts. Now, the only bummer I will report is that this Terminator endoskeleton, when I took all the parts out of the box, has two left femur parts and no right femur part. So, and it's not going to be something that I can write to the company and get a replacement for. Chances are you'd be hard pressed to find them. I can either scratch build that femur part, but since it's kind of noticeable, I think I'm going to end up making some sort of diorama towards the end of the movie where the Terminator had lost both of its legs and it was crawling around on its torso towards the crusher, and I think maybe that's what I'm going to do with that kit instead. But all of these kits had all of their parts. The X-Wing I checked, I opened up the box before I bought it and checked that all the baggies were there and they were all still sealed. But the lesson learned there is go to these shows. You'll see some great modeling, and you may pick yourself up a heck of a deal on the dealer's table. Now, I'm under strict orders from myself not to touch any of these until after Wonderfest. So they will all go in the pile, and I will get back to what I need to be working on, because Wonderfest is coming up in about 3 weeks, and I'm feeling good about what I've got, but I really need to finish. So back with that. Okay, now back to things of a more otherworldly nature, or at least a more futuristic nature. I watched that little first video back and I realized what a whiny complainer I sounded like, and I really shouldn't. It's not my cup of tea, but I'm not going to deny that taste of it to somebody else. So what we're doing now is we're getting onto the final short rows on the Kirk and Spock maquettes. I had a brainwave today about how to best do the wiring for the lighting of the helmets, and patted myself on the back for my ingenuity, and can't wait to visualize that, but I think it's going to work. But what I'm doing now is cutting the bubbles, and I've only got one each for each of these things, so I've got to make it work right the first time. And what I decided to do was to take a bit of wire, this black gauge wire, and super glue it, CA it, down to the edge of the opening here. And what this is going to create is a gasket of sorts behind which I can put the bubble and have a surface to not only make up some of the imperfections of the bubble, because I am really just trimming and positioning and retrimming and positioning and trying to work itself into shape. Like I said, I've only got one each of these, so I am doing some fiddly, meticulous work, and having that gasket in there will give me a fudge factor and a place to push the plastic up against to glue, so it'll hold it in place rather than just trying to hold it there by pixie wishes and good thoughts alone. So that's what I'm doing now. It's not the most glamorous work, so I will spare you the details and hopefully show you a finished result pretty shortly. Don't know how well this is translating on film, but you can see here's an idea, and you can tell by looking inside how much more has to be trimmed off. But here's the idea of the profile of the bubble once it's in place. I'm happy with this top corner and how it reacts along the top edge, but cutting the bottom edge, again, you can, if you look through, you can see how much needs to be trimmed off. And that's the goal. And here's the value of doing two things or doing something twice. I must have fumbled for hours getting the bubble into Spock's helmet, getting it trimmed, and then getting it fitted, and then trim some more, and then sand a little bit, and that was all well and good. But then I came to Kirk's helmet, and with the lessons learned of the first one, that thing just popped right into place. I trimmed it, I test fit it a couple of times, and bam, right into place it went. It was kind of embarrassing after all the time I had spent on the other one. I'd figure I was in for another long haul, but this will be painted black, but this is a little bit of epoxy sculpt, simply to make the bubble conform to the helmet conform to the bubble. It's a little bit out of whack, and I think that's just the nature of vacuform versus the helmets. And I think I may have sanded away too much of the inner rim there when I was sanding the helmets, because I didn't have the bubble fit in with it. So sorry, the phone's ringing. I will cut this short. I'm back. That was a telemarketer. It wasn't anybody I was expecting. But like I said, the Kirk bubble popped in after maybe I would say maybe five minutes of testing and trimming and testing. That was literally hours of twisting and trimming and testing. So lesson learned. It much easier to do two than it is just to do one. But I'll let the epoxy sculpt dry overnight, and then I will paint that black, and you'll never notice it. That's a goodly amount of work for one day.